What's up, guys? I'm LQ with the LQ Review, here to give you my ranking of the DCEU. So this is my updated ranking now that Black Adam has been out. I've watched it. This ranking will also include Peacemaker, and quite frankly, as I compared my ranking with my previous ranking of the DCU, some of my spots have changed quite a bit. I've rewatched everything recently, and some of them just kind of hit me a little differently this time than before. So let's go over the ranking. There are 13 entries into the DCEU, and let's check them out. So at number 13 is the theatrical edition of Justice League, or the Justice League. This was just, I actually defended this movie when it first came out, but the more I watched it, the more the weaknesses became so overwhelmingly glaring, the more that this started to look like a hobbled together Frankenstein version of a monster, or Frankenstein version of a movie that just didn't work at all. So I do not like this movie. I do not like it, and part of it, you know what? I liked it a lot less also after I saw the Snyder Cut. Once I saw the Snyder Cut, I was like, wow, this is what the theatrical edition was supposed to be. This is so much better. Every decision that they made, every decision that Joss Whedon made was wrong. It was a bad decision. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. But Justice League is at the bottom. All right, number 12 is Wonder Woman 1984. Now, this is a movie that I didn't even like the first time I watched it. Yeah, it was during the pandemic, and it was great to see a big blockbuster get released, but I just didn't like it, and I've never liked it, and I've rewatched it a couple times since, and every time I rewatch it, I just don't like it. Its tone doesn't really fit with the rest of the DCEU. The events that occur in the movie would have had massive repercussions on the DCEU, yet none of those repercussions are felt in the later movies. It kind of goes off book from where Wonder Woman should be at that point in her life. Remember, she was hiding from mankind. She was not Wonder Womaning at that point at that point in her career. I mean, there's just so much about this movie. The wishing thing, like, how would that work if people wish for opposing wishes? None of this movie worked for me. And Cheetah looked awful. Maxwell Lord is so much cooler of a character than what they introduced here. Maxwell Lord was like a criminal mastermind that drove Diana to committing murder. I mean, this is just, I don't know what Patty Jenkins was thinking here. Wonder Woman 1984 was awful. All right. From here on up, I've liked every other movie in the DCU. Some more than others, and as we're going to see in that list, some of them quite a bit more than others. But from here on up, I've liked every other movie, even Suicide Squad, guys. Even the first Suicide Squad, I had fun with it. All right, so let's go. Number 11 is Aquaman. A lot of people liked Aquaman more than me, and a lot of people would place Aquaman a lot higher on this list than I would. I just thought it was a little too corny for my liking. There was a point in the movie where an octopus was playing drums, and I just... I couldn't get on board with it. I just couldn't get on board with it. It felt too Little Mermaid to me. Now, some of the action was great. The final battle at the end was great. The special effects were superb. I liked Black Manta a lot. I thought Ocean Master was very well realized. I just did not feel like overall the tone matched the whole movie. It didn't match the whole DCU, and it definitely didn't match the whole movie. There were points in the movie that were just completely tonally different than other points in this movie, and it just felt very inconsistent to me. So, I don't know. So, some of it just didn't work for me. So let's just leave it at that. All right. Number 10 is Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. This kind of reminded me of like a Tarantino or Guy Pearce take on a superhero movie, and I'm a huge fan of Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. She's one of my favorite characterizations in the DCEU. The reason this isn't ranked higher is because I just feel like some of the characterizations they just got completely wrong. Now, obviously, Harley Quinn, they did a very good job with that, but then I look at Victor Zsasz. Victor Zsasz isn't a henchman. Victor Zsasz is a crazy lunatic. The Huntress. That's not the Huntress I know. I'm sorry, that's not the Huntress I know. That's not the Cassandra Cain that I know. That's not the Renee Montoya that I know. I mean, they got all of these characterizations so incredibly wrong, except for Harley Quinn. And I don't know why. I don't know why. These are easy characters to understand. These are easy characters to get right, and they just get them so glaringly wrong. It just boggles my mind. Ewan McGregor was great as Black Mask, though. I really enjoyed that. And again, I can watch Margot Robbie chew scenery all day. The action was fantastic. You can tell that they brought in the John Wick stunt choreographers because the action was top notch. But a lot of the interpretations of characters, it just didn't work for me at all. All right, number 9. Number 9 is the first Suicide Squad. This movie was a mess. I get that, and 100% it was a mess. Bringing in a trailer company to cut a movie is an awful idea. I don't know. I hope whoever came up with that over at Warner Brothers got fired because it was a horrible idea. But for whatever reason, I just have fun with this movie. I do. It's just a silly, stupid, fun superhero movie. I loved Will Smith as Deadshot. Great opening movie for Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. Again, Captain Boomerang, Killer Croc. I mean, so much of this movie I just really liked. I just wish that these characters in the Suicide Squad, I wish they were in a better movie because I loved the characterizations of them. All right. Number 8 is Shazam. Sorry, guys, I have a lot of fun with Shazam. I do. I think Shazam is a great family movie, a very good superhero movie. It was a little tonally inconsistent at parts. You know, there were some parts that felt very family friendly, like you could sit down with the whole family and watch it. And then there's a scene where a boardroom is getting ripped to pieces by monsters. I mean, it was a little tonally inconsistent, but I really liked it. I thought it had a lot of heart, had a lot of good action, and yeah, you know, I was just mostly feeling this movie, so I really liked it. All right, number 7 is Black Adam. The Rock was great as Black Adam. Hawkman was great. Pierce Brosnan was great as Dr. Fate. The movie's plot doesn't really give you a whole lot to write home about. The villain was pretty weak, but overall, I found the movie to be a lot of fun. My review for that movie is now on my channel, so feel free to check that out. That's number 7. Number 6 is Batman vs. Superman, the Ultimate Edition. And I get it. There's some weaknesses here. There's some story problems. There's some stuff that's a little too convoluted. But at the end of the day, this was my favorite interpretation of Superman. This is my favorite interpretation of Batman. I get it. A lot of people love that hope-inspired Superman. I really felt that this version of Superman is more of a how would the world really react to somebody like this? And how would somebody like this really react in the world? I felt it was a much more grounded take on it. So, like it or hate it, it is what it is, guys. And I've been reading Superman since about 1986, 1985. So I'm very well versed on the character, and I just really like this version of Superman. I think it feels very modern while still maintaining what Superman is. This version of Lex Luthor, I'm not a fan of at all. I would have definitely wished that they would have gone for more of a alpha male type person to run LexCorp. Instead, we get the kind of this crazy, twitchy, weird thing that happened. Ben Affleck is my favorite interpretation of Batman. I think he did great. Now, he wasn't in the best movies. Obviously, I think The Dark Knight is a better movie than Batman vs. Superman, but he is my favorite interpretation of Batman. So I really like this movie. You know, it was overlong, overstuffed. They tried to do too much. They tried to rush the team-up movie. But at the end of the day, I still really like this. All right. Number 5 is James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. I think some people might rank this a little higher than me. And don't get me wrong, I really like this movie, obviously. It's number 5, and I consider it a very strong film. But I also feel like it doesn't always mesh well with the rest of the DCEU. Do I see King Shark existing in the same world as Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman? The answer is no. So it almost feels like this different alternative take on the DCEU, and I can't say for sure that it even exists in the same universe, but I think it does. It just doesn't feel like it. It feels very removed from everything else. I can't see Polka Dot Man existing in that same universe. You know, it feels very inconsistent with the world they established in the Snyder trilogy. So I really liked it. I just had some problems with it. All right, number 4 is Peacemaker. Guys, I loved Peacemaker. I loved it. I loved it. I've watched it multiple times. I think the show is hilarious. It has some great ties to, great Easter eggs to DC Comics, has some interesting ties to the overall DCEU. It kind of suffers from a bit from the same thing the Suicide Squad did, in that it doesn't really feel congruent with Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, but for whatever reason, I tend to buy this a little bit more as being connected than the others, because for whatever reason, yeah, there's a guy in a dragon Iron Man suit, and there's aliens flying around infecting people, invasion of the Body Snatchers style, but for some reason this feels a little more grounded than the Suicide Squad did. And I know that's crazy, it doesn't. I mean, it's not more grounded, but for some reason it just feels that way. So, Peacemaker's number 4. Number 3 is Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's a great movie. A great movie. You know, it's probably one of my, top 12 or 13 superhero movies of all time. That's how good I think it is. Has a lot in common with Captain America, being, going back and exploring something in the past that our hero was involved in before they got to modern day. But guys, it was just a really good interpretation of the character, really good interpretation of Steve Trevor. What I tell people about this movie is this is the perfect girl power movie. This is the perfect feminist movie, because what movies get wrong nowadays is that when they're making a girl power movie, they make a movie that they have to make the men look dumb, they have to make the men look incompetent, they have to make the men look evil. There has to be some sort of obvious glaring flaw in all the men in the movie in order to prop up the woman. That's not feminism, that's pandering. All right, Wonder Woman is a true feminist movie because they don't dumb down Steve Trevor. They don't make Steve Trevor incompetent. Steve Trevor's standing and Wonder Woman stand side to side. They're operating as equals. Even though she can kick his butt, she's not pushing him down to push herself up. They are standing together side by side, shoulder to shoulder as equals with common goals in mind. And they each have things that they are good at, they each have flaws, and they complement each other. Steve Trevor complements Diana, Diana complements Steve Trevor. That is true feminism. Not having to make Steve Trevor an idiot so Wonder Woman looks good. That's not what they're doing here. And I really appreciate it. So out of all the recent female superhero content that's out there, this is the one that I most enjoy watching with my daughter, because I think it delivers the best message possible about female superheroes, is you can be empowered and stand side by side with other people, including men. You don't have to hate men. And it's okay to surround yourself with men who are competent, nice people. And I don't know. It was a great movie. I love Wonder Woman. Yeah, you had the big CGI battle at the end, but I still loved it. All right, number 2 is Zack Snyder's Justice League. It was a long road to get there, but I loved it. I loved it. I think it's definitely one of my top 10 superhero movies of all time. Obviously, it's a little over long at 4 hours. That's not something that I would have enjoyed watching in the theaters. But the characterization of the Justice League members was fantastic. The plot was great. The ties to Darkseid and Apocalypse was great. Guys, this was honestly, when I was a kid reading comic books in the 80s. In the 80s, when I was a kid reading comic books, I used to dream about comic book movies that would adapt the source material. Zack Snyder's Justice League is that movie that I dreamed of. It was, and that's why that movie's so special. And that's why the next one is so special also, because these were the movies that I dreamed of when I was a kid, that I fantasized about in my head. And Zack Snyder brought it to life, and brought it to life in a way that felt authentic, but also did something modern with it. So I loved Zack Snyder's Justice League. For me, it's a 10 out of 10 movie. It really is. But it wasn't quite as good as the number 1 movie. Number 1 movie in the DCU for me is Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel is a masterpiece. And I know there's a lot of people out there, even hardcore Superman fans, that hate this movie because it doesn't really grasp the hopefulness of Superman. But this was an origin story. Man of Steel was an origin story. It was Superman on day one. He wasn't even Superman yet. And I loved it. I loved everything about this movie. There's nothing really about this movie that I really nitpick. When I was a teenager, rewatching Superman 2 for the 5 billionth time, I used to think, man, wouldn't it be cool if we got a modern version of Superman versus Zod? We got it, and it was brilliant, and I loved it. Guys, honestly, there's not a whole lot I can actually nitpick about this movie. I really can't. I mean, Jimmy Olsen wasn't in it. That might be it. There was no Jimmy Olsen in this Superman movie. That might be it. I thought it was that good. All right, here's one nitpick for you. And this is a legitimate one. I did not like the way Jonathan Kent died. I didn't. Dying in a tornado didn't work for me. In the Donner film, Jonathan Kent died of a heart attack. And Superman had to reconcile that. Clark had to reconcile that. All the things I can do, all these powers, and I couldn't even save him. And that was something that he was unable to save. You can't save somebody from that. So yeah, Jonathan Kent's death is definitely my big nitpick in Man of Steel. The rest of the movie was great. I don't care. Come at me. I've been reading Superman comics for longer than most people. Come on. Bring it. All right, guys. Go ahead. Bring it in the comment sections. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in a civil, respectful way. If anybody comes out cussing or anything like that, I'm not going to reply. But if anybody wants to have a civil discourse about Man of Steel, I'm all ready because I love this movie. All right. There it is. My rankings of the DCEU. Feel free to go down to the comment section and tell me how wrong I am. And like I said, as long as there's respectful discourse, we'll have a conversation about it. All right, guys. Thanks for being here.